I've said this before, I'll say it again. As long as I own Carrier411, I'm never going to raise our base price because I don't want to, I don't need to, and we don't have to. And my philosophy is probably very different than a lot of others in the industry. I'd rather have 10 customers that pay less than 3 customers that pay a lot more.
Did you know that 91% of phishing attacks are conducted via email? Freight brokers are particularly at risk as email is the primary, really only option to collect carrier invoices, until now. ePay Manager powered by OTR Solutions is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. The key to ePay's invoicing workflow is that the invoice is proactively triggered by the broker's TMS and is only created once the carrier reviews the details, which catches invoice disputes early on. This means that you can increase your invoice processing by up to 300 to 500% and reduce billing inaccuracies by 99%. Learn more about ePay by visiting epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Rapido. Rapido connects logistics and supply chain organizations in North America with the best nearshore talent, scale efficiently, operate on par with US-based teams, and deliver superior customer service. Rapido works with businesses from all sides of the logistics industry, including 3PLs, carriers, and logistics software companies. Rapido builds out teams with roles across customer and carrier sales and support, back office administration, and technology services. The team at Rapido knows logistics and people. It's what sets them apart. Rapido is driven by an inside knowledge of how to recruit, hire, and train within the logistics industry, and a passion to build better solutions for success. Learn more about the Rapido solution and begin building your team away from home at gorapido.com.
We've partnered with Ascend TMS, the world's most popular and top-rated transportation management system. It's the ultimate tool for all your freight needs. You can use our referral code RA-FreightCaviar! To receive 3 months of Ascend TMS for free. It only takes 20 seconds to sign up and no credit card is required. You can click the link below to learn more.
Find shippers fast with shippercrm.com. Shipper CRM is a Freight Caviar product, and it is the first US shipper database and freight CRM. Stop wasting time searching for shippers. Shipper CRM is the fastest way to find the shippers you should be working with. This purpose-built sales platform offers 4 key features: US shipper database, access 51,000 research shippers, Magic Map, a revolutionary search engine that helps you quickly find your ideal shippers, Magic Contacts, logistics contacts that automatically update themselves, Relationship Manager plus integrations. Seamlessly manage shipper relationships with built-in CRM tools and integrations. Supercharge your sales process with Shipper CRM. Learn more by going to shippercrm.com.
Darren Brewer, the CEO and founder of Carrier411. Darren, a couple weeks ago, we got in contact for the first time. And just to give everyone some context that's tuning in today, a few weeks ago, Darren was preparing to file a federal lawsuit against Freight Caviar. And here we are now, smiling on camera, about to do an interview about Carrier411. Darren, real quick, if you may, just give us a quick introduction to who you are and what Carrier411 is, for those that don't know, but I'm assuming most people do. And then we could start from there. And I have a few more things I want to say as well. But Darren, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. So my Polish is not as good as it used to be, but dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry. That was really good.
So I started Carrier411 back in late 2004 when it was just an idea, and it took me a few months to put it together, and then we went into beta with probably about 15 of the mega brokers just as proof of concept. And I had absolutely no idea when I started the company whether it was going to be successful. Wish I had kept the paper towel that I had written the whole concept out on. But yeah, over the last 20 years, I mean, it's grown to be what our customers say is the industry standard for brokers. And today, what's today? October 15th, 2024. So we have over 4,500 brokerages that use us. Probably about 600 big shipper manufacturers, like big names, Walmart, Sony, Walgreens, Home Depot, stuff like Coca-Cola, stuff like that. But 80% of our customers are brokers. 10% are shippers, and then the other 10% are vertical market customers. Like we have about 160 factoring companies, insurance companies, things like that. But even the FMCSA is a customer of ours. And we work pretty closely behind the scenes with the FMCSA, especially their special investigators and the Office of Inspector General, because we'll help them, well, believe it or not, we've helped them indict and prosecute large groups of companies that are involved in fraud schemes.
Okay. Wow.
So
very impressive.
Brokers use us to research, qualify, monitor carriers. And, you know, this morning it's like 9:20 a.m. here in Florida. So there's over 60,000 people logged in using Carrier411 right now as we speak.
Wow. Before we continue, I have so many questions, Darren, for you, and I believe this interview is going to be super interesting. I wanted to let everyone know this is a completely unscripted interview. I put together about 10 questions here for Darren, even a couple more. Darren has no idea what the questions will be. Darren is very direct, very transparent. We only hopped on a one call before this, which was kind of to discuss some problems with some freight caviar postings that we had, but we figured everything out. And now we're going to dive into the Carrier411 story and discuss that. We'll talk about the freight guards, about everything that all the questions I have here that Darren still doesn't even know about. But very interesting, Darren. So you started this back in 2004, which is now exactly 20 years ago. Like, what existed back then? Like, what were people using? Was there any system besides Carrier411? Like,
nope.
And how did okay?
There was absolutely nothing out there. And so I've been in the industry since early 96, transportation technology, owned many companies, sold a couple companies, but Carrier411 has always been my passion and my baby. I mean, I just love it. And we love working with brokers. But kind of the short backstory about Carrier411 and how it came to be is I used to own a factoring company, and I started it from the ground up, kept it about 8 years, and we constantly had companies coming in wanting to buy it, even from year one, but I held on to it for 8 years. And I'd written all my own factoring software, and it was all web-based. This was in, 2002. And we were very unique in what we did as a factor. So I know factoring, and all the people in my office know factoring because many of them have been with me for 25 years. So they're great. But part of our process at the factoring company, we dealt with mostly owner-operators because, the statistics today are still the same pretty much as they were 20 years ago. 73% of all carriers have one truck. Okay. So every load, every day, every invoice, my entire staff was having to verify compliance and safety for every client, every carrier. And we were just doing what was available. You go to the FMCSA websites, licensing insurance site, safer website. And we did that at the time so there wouldn't be any friction with brokers over any invoices. Like, we used to get brokers say, well, the carrier moved the load for us. They picked it up and delivered. There was no problems, but they never finished our setup packet. We don't have their insurance. We don't have this and that. So we would maintain all that data, all that information in case we had to provide to a broker. And then we were extremely cautious to ensure that all of our carrier clients always maintained active authority and insurance. So because of how automated we were, and It was a really well-oiled machine. I thought, there's got to be a better way to stay on top of all these authority insurance changes. And I wrote my own software. So I think I was actually probably one of the first FMCSA data subscription customers. And I didn't even know it existed at the time. And I was so excited that it was available. So we got set up with the FMCSA over 20 years ago, fully automated. And it just went from there. And I started writing my own stuff for my own company. And then I had this moment where I realized quickly, I bet you there's a lot of other people who would want something like this, brokers. And then it was just a natural shift. I stopped working on it for my own company, and it became Carrier411. And it's just grown over the years, very organically, which is great.
Hey there, amazing listeners. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on our podcast, we need your support. It will only take a moment, but it would mean the world to us. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share with one of your friends that would enjoy our content. Your engagement helps us reach more people and bring more awesome episodes to you. Thanks a million, and thanks for being part of the podcast community.
So when you began 20 years ago, was the website different than it is today? And one of the interesting parts of Carrier411 for me is that, and I actually respect this a lot, is that I started using it in 2015, and the website hasn't changed at all in the 9 years. And I'm wondering, in the sense of the user design, right? And I like that because it kind of reminds me of Craigslist, a company that has, I'm not sure how many employees, but just does remarkably well financially. And, it's like a lot of companies spend a ton of money on design and all these fancy buttons and stuff like that, where in reality, what you need is something that's useful for the end user. So I'm kind of curious if you could tell me a little bit how the website looked like back then. Did freight guards exist back in 2004?
Yeah, they did. So believe it or not, I have all archived code going back to day one. And back then, the site looked a little different. And when we first started out, there was much less information about carriers that was available. And then, I think one of the big shift points was around 2006 when this Schramm versus Foster, C.H. Robinson case, negligent selection of a motor carrier. And then suddenly everything became all about safety and liability to brokers. And, we started incorporating more data. And as time went on, we added more and more. And I'll never forget, in the early days, people used to complain to us that when we started adding more and more information for them to see, they got angry. And you're showing us too much. We don't want to see all this information. And I just blew it off because I knew it was important. And so now over the years, we actually maintain 24 different FMCSA data sets, plus all of our own proprietary data. And about 12 years ago or so, I kind of refreshed things a little bit. And it's what you see today. The problem is we're so busy, and I do all the development. I do everything from that standpoint. And so I'm a little not happy about our interface design. It looks 12 years old. It's because it is.
I like it though, but it's easy to use and people know it. I think it makes sense. Whenever I used it, I never had any issues with it. It was very intuitive.
People don't like change. They always resist change. But I will tell you this: for the last year and a half, I've been working on our new platform, and that's everything new from the ground up, from scratch, outside, inside, everything. And I'm still about 6 months behind on releasing it in beta. But oh my God, man, is it awesome! It's 5 times better. I could show it to you if you want to see it, but I'm still not done. And it's because of how crazy everything's been. and how busy
Yeah.
we are. And, I think I know how my day's going to go. But then it goes sideways fast. So I'm thinking maybe within the next 4 months or so, we might release it in beta to select customers. And it is jam-packed. It's all new technology, all new features, all new functions, all new capabilities. It's super easy to use. It's way more enhanced and powerful, completely new UI, very intuitive. Everything's video, everywhere, everything. So I've designed it to be even more user-friendly, more self-service for customers. And then my end game too is to help reduce the overhead of my staff by up to 50%. So we're looking at really streamlining everything, and it is so geared on fraud detection, risk mitigation, especially in response to all these scammers and these fraud schemes. I mean, my goal is to help brokers put these guys in a corner where they have nowhere to turn and nowhere to hide. So be patient with me. And then, some customers know we're preparing to release it. And then once we release the new site in beta and we go live in production with it, we're going to release a new REST JSON API that's designed for carrier onboarding. And then following that, we're going to actually release carrier onboarding in Carrier411, our carrier onboarding platform. And it's better than everything else out there. And the cool thing is when we release the onboarding, we're going to let all of our customers use it for free, probably for like a year. And then when we do charge for it, it's going to be ridiculously affordable. And we've had some people look at it already. I'm not done, but it's awesome.
Okay. So Darren, in that scenario, is that a response to all the competitors, quote unquote, that have popped up in recent years in the industry?
No, I mean, I know pretty much all the players in the industry. I know Jordan with Highway. I mean, he and I go way, way back, and we're friends. I mean, Highway has an awesome platform. I mean, I think they're the best carrier onboarding solution out there right now. But when we release our platform, nobody's going to be able to compete with us, especially on price point and features. And that's one of the things probably worth mentioning. You asked me kind of how things got started and when. Yeah. So back in late 2009, I sold my factoring company to really big 200-year-old factoring company from England. And I was set. I mean, I didn't have to work anymore. But God, did I love Carrier411. And I still work 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I love what I do, like you. And most business owners understand that. So because of that, I've never raised our prices in 20 years. And I kind of made this, I've said this before, I'll say it again. As long as I own Carrier411, I'm never going to raise our base price. Because I don't want to, I don't need to, and we don't have to. And my philosophy is probably very different than a lot of others in the industry. I'd rather have 10 customers that pay less than 3 customers that pay a lot more. And, you look at over the years, DAT, Truck Stop, I mean, man, they just raised their prices up. I think Truck Stop now, it could be over $400 a month for just one user. And that's kind of absurd. And the demographic of the broker industry is very similar to the trucking side of things, where majority of carriers are one truck. The majority of brokers are small brokers. And even, so we do have brokers paying us, thousands of dollars a month. It's not just $99. Depends who they are and what they do. But the small brokers who, whether they have an account for $99 a month, or maybe they have an upgrade and it's $148 a month, we've seen some interesting things, especially over the course of this year with the economy and freight. I knew a lot of small brokers were probably going to fall on hard times this year and struggle. And that's exactly what it's turned out to be. So many small brokers have gone out of business. And our system's fully automated. I mean, 85% of our customers pay by credit card. And I mean, every day, the number of credit cards that get declined, even for just $99, says a lot.
Yeah.
And then they'll work it out. They come back and reactivate their account. But times are tough in the industry for brokers, carriers, and, well, everyone here in the United States, because I think our country's been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep it affordable, and I always will.
Definitely. There's honestly not many companies out there. I don't know of any companies that have maintained the same prices over the last 20 years.
None. We're the only ones, and it's intentional. I could charge a lot more, man. Even our customers tell us, you guys need to charge more. Sure, I could charge $400 a month. That'd be good for us, but it's not good for the industry or for small brokers. I'm okay with it. Doesn't bother me one bit.
I'm wondering, Darren, because from what I know, trucking companies can't make an account, right? On Carrier411, if you go on like Carrier411, it says specifically if you're a trucking company, like, do not fill out this form. Just like,
yeah.
So why is that? And has that always been the case?
It's always been the case. So Carrier411 is a service primarily for brokers and shippers. And like I said, 80% of our customers are brokers. Carrier411 is not a service for carriers. We do not let carriers have accounts. We will not talk to carriers about anything. Okay. They're kidding themselves if they think they're going to create a trial and get access to our platform. It's just not possible. And we have so much stuff in place to stop and prevent that from happening. So we don't let carriers have accounts because carriers have no reason to research, qualify, and monitor other trucking companies. But the scammers want to, because they want to try to get into our platform so they can monitor all their 20 different MC numbers that have carrier authority, and their 5 different MC numbers that have broker authority. They're all part of these elaborate fraud schemes. But we don't let carriers have accounts. And probably one of the smartest things I did about 5 years ago, we actually integrated our phone system live with our databases. And it automatically blocks all incoming calls from carriers. Every phone number for every trucking company is automatically blocked from calling our office. And then they'll try to work around that. They may call from their wife's cell phone or whatever, but then they're blocked fast within seconds from any new numbers that they call from. And we actually show customers and let them see when they look up a carrier, all known phone numbers for that carrier, including any and all phone numbers that the carriers use to call us. And we even show our customers the call block log. Every date, every time, every phone number a carrier's called us and gotten blocked. We have no reason to talk to carriers, but they call us and they lose their minds for various things. It's always because they're getting turned down for loads by brokers. And somehow they think it's our fault. Like, it's us, it's Carrier411 that's causing them to, lose business or not get loads from brokers, when that's just the furthest thing from the truth. So we don't talk to them. And we're hardcore about that, very hardcore.
Yeah.
And, from time to time, I will talk with customers. Usually if something catches my attention or interest, I'll talk to someone. Or if there's a problem, I'll talk to a customer. But the people in my office are outstanding. I mean, all of them are all cross-trained and everything. And we're all based exclusively in Florida. That's it. Nobody outside the United States. And there's so much false information online. So we do monitor several different platforms and social media platforms, mostly looking for fraud and fraud schemes. And I think it was about a week ago. I mean, FreightWaves. Everybody knows FreightWaves. And Tim Dooner, I think he is What the Truck I don't know what he calls it, show. And it's very carrier centric. And he was posting some stuff, misinformation about us about a week ago. And somebody suggested that we actually had people in Macedonia who work here. And it's just, that's a joke. All my people are in the great state of Florida. And somebody calls, a real person answers immediately. And it doesn't matter who they talk to because that person's cross-trained in everything. And they can help that person with whatever they're calling about instantly.
ePay Manager, powered by OTR Solutions, is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. Learn more about ePay by visiting epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're big on customer service. It's huge.
I'm curious, Darren, because there are a lot of trucking companies who have voiced like their disappointment with Carrier411, with the freight guard system being like unfair to them. They lose business, like you mentioned. And I'm wondering, like, don't you think maybe there's a way to have trucking companies join Carrier411 so they can report bad brokers? And like, why is that like something that you haven't done and don't want to do, which I assume you don't want to do? So if you could talk a little bit about that side of things, I'm curious.
You want to talk about it?
Let's do it.
All right. So I kind of laid out what the future looks like over the course of the next year and what we've been working on and where we're headed and what we're doing. And I told you we're getting ready to release our new platform for Carrier411 and then where we're headed after that. Well, between going live in production with our new platform and releasing the onboarding stuff, well, there's some things that happen in the middle. We're actually going to introduce a new platform as service for carriers.
Okay.
I'm thinking I might call it Carrier511, and it's going to be many things. Number one, it's going to be a very valuable service for carriers, but primarily it's the platform for onboarding. So we're going to vet carriers to the extreme to ensure that it really is that carrier and it's not some scammer trying to steal the identity of the carrier. And we've got enhanced identity verification stuff with driver's license validation and AI and a whole bunch of other things that help us ensure the carrier's really the carrier when they create an account. And it's part of the onboarding stuff. So, brokers will be able to upload their contracts and different versions of their contracts for onboarding. And onboarding through Carrier411 for brokers will be a piece of cake. And it's very custom and very specific. They can assign multiple contracts for a carrier. And then when the brokers will know if that carrier they're looking at is already set up with, let's just say, Carrier511. I think that's what I'm going to call it. So they'll know if the carrier is already set up on our 511 platform. Brokers in Carrier411 will see all the information about that carrier in Carrier411 that was provided by the carrier in 511. Okay. And including enhanced profiles and everything like that. So if a broker wants to onboard a carrier, it's one click. The carrier will be notified. The carrier simply goes to log into 511 and they're presented with the onboarding request from the broker. All they have to do is log into 511, e-sign the broker's contract, and it's done. I mean, that can be done in seconds. So, but beyond the onboarding aspect, which is hugely important for carriers, and I mean, who else? I mean, there's a few other platforms out there, like, 4 or 5 years ago, Truck Stop acquired RMIS.
Yeah.
And I've always scratched my head about that one. And I knew it was a recipe for disaster. And that's pretty much what it's turned out to be, I think, for Truck Stop, because RMIS has just gone on a massive downhill slide. And my understanding is they have only a fraction of their customers that they did years ago. And the scammers can get through RMIS pretty easily. But with our platform, our onboarding stuff, they won't be able to. And so in addition to the onboarding for carriers in 511, we're also going to let the carriers see their own profile. Very similar to what brokers see about them in Carrier 411. Maybe not everything from a fraud standpoint, but most of it. Okay. Not only that, they'll be able to monitor their own trucking company and get alerts whenever any information changes. And it's going to be so carrier friendly, simple and easy to use and understand. And I really think it's going to help them, because a lot of these carriers, whether they know it or not, I mean, there's so many carriers that lose authority and they don't even know it. They should, they're notified, but they'll keep operating. So we're looking at providing a very helpful, valuable service to carriers that also supports our onboarding platform. If that, does that make sense to you?
It does. It does. I am curious though, will carriers be able to report brokers in Carrier 511?
I think they're going to be called carrier guard reports.
Okay.
Brokers are not happy about that idea. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
We do what we do, and we do what we think is right. We want to clear up something. I mean, my God, you Google Carrier 411, there's so much stuff out there about everything. Yeah. And mostly it's carriers about stuff, about how unfair we are and how much we hate carriers. That's just the furthest thing from the truth. We don't hate carriers. It's just that carriers are not our customers, plain and simple. And we have no reason to talk to them, because if they ever, there was a time when we used to take phone calls from carriers. We did for a good number of years. And all they did was waste our time. They wanted to talk about everything under the sun, and we have no room for that. So I made a decision years ago. We're just not talking to carriers about anything. There's no point, especially freight guard reports. And, you know, so many of these carriers think it's so unfair, and that with every freight guard report that's submitted, that Carrier 411 has some obligation or duty to conduct full research and analysis about every single report. We need to run deep down the rabbit hole and talk to the carrier and talk to the broker and moderate and mediate everything and verify everything the broker says is true for every single freight guard report. And that's, not only is that not possible, it's impractical, and we don't get involved to that degree with the freight guard reports. You know, we entrust and require our customers submit accurate, true, correct information. I've got 2 or 3 people in the office who review every single freight guard report within minutes of them being submitted during business hours, which is from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. And then sometimes even a little bit after hours. We look at every single freight guard report that gets submitted very closely. And we look at the reported items. We look at the comments that were submitted by the broker, and we make sure that the 2 of them match up. And if, you know, somebody starts checking a whole bunch of reportable items, but that doesn't coincide with the comments they're making, okay, we will remove some of the items that they may have checked if it's not supported by the comments. And boy, are we strict. We don't tolerate abuse. We know, and we kind of have a term for it internally. We call them bullshit reports. And we don't allow bullshit reports. I mean, people who submit reports because they don't like the way the carrier talked to them, or the way dispatch talked to them. No, we try to maintain the integrity of the reports as much as possible. We avoid letting people use them as a weapon. And I'll tell you, the biggest abusers of trying to use freight guard reports as a weapon, ironically, are all the mega brokers. True. Because over the last month, I did some very strategic things, because everything that we do is for a reason, and everything we don't do are for reasons. And about 5 weeks ago, knowing that where I was leading up to with all these major changes in freight guard reports, on a Monday evening about 7:30 p.m., I said, enough's enough. There were some really bad things that had been going on over the previous week with identity theft and freight theft and hostage loads and brokers getting harassed. What I knew was happening was customers were submitting freight guard reports. I mean, the really bad reports for like double brokering and hostage loads and freight theft. People would call us, customers would call and say, hey, I'm really confused because last week we just looked up this carrier and they had, like 3 freight guard reports for double brokering. And now we look them up this week and there's nothing. They're gone. Well, so on a Monday evening, I made a change. First baby step, call it market research, business intelligence, okay? I made a change so that nobody could update or delete freight guard reports. And that was rolled out. They could not update them, they could not change them, and they could not delete them. Okay, now why did I do that? It was intentional. I told my staff, I said, get ready for it. And I said, when customers call or email wanting to update or delete a report, tell them no. No. The only thing that I said on the site was reports can only be deleted at our discretion. That was it. And I took away their ability to update and delete. I knew that on the Friday, 5 days later, I was going to roll things back so they could update and delete again. But what I wanted to do during that week was get a lot of very valuable business intelligence and verify exactly what I knew was going on. Like Ronald Reagan used to say, trust but verify. Okay. So boy, did I learn some interesting things. And every customer that contacted us during that week wanting to delete a freight guard report, my staff logged it. We knew the carrier. We knew the report they wanted to delete. And I was informed about every single report that people wanted to delete that week. I personally looked at every single report that our customers wanted to delete that week. And about 70% of them were for the really bad things, like double brokering and hostage loads or freight theft. And those reports were getting deleted. And the question is why? It's the harassment. It's extreme harassment to the brokers, to the point where I talked to probably 3 or 4 broker customers of ours who wanted to delete reports. And most of them were smaller brokers, like, 3, 4 people. One broker, I felt so bad for them. This guy was out of his mind because he submitted a freight guard report against a carrier for double brokering. And, that's like the kiss of death, a double brokering freight guard report. Yeah. He hooked a whale. He submitted a report about an MC number that was part of a much larger fraud scheme that involved about 15 different MC numbers, carrier MC numbers, and 2 different broker MC numbers. And these scammers, when you really hit the bullseye, they lose their minds. And there's a couple groups in Eastern Europe. One of them, I think, is called Carrier Network. It's very vague. And I've called and talked to them with one of our broker customers. It's like some of these major fraud scheme carriers will launch an attack on brokers. It's almost like a denial of service attack. And the broker will start getting just flooded, bombarded with 100, 150 phone calls a day. And all these phone numbers are coming from all these different voice over IP numbers. So even if the broker blocks a phone number, bam, they're getting another call. And they're getting hit with 100, 150 emails a day. And it's just nonstop. and they're harassing the broker, all their employees, making threats. We've had brokers send us emails about the threats that they're getting from carriers that get reported, especially the really big scammers. These people are threatening the lives of brokers. They're sending them emailing them pictures of the owner's house, their family, and everything. I mean, it's hardcore. So these brokers, they were deleting these reports because they were getting harassed to an extreme, and they just gave up. They said, all right, we'll delete the report. And the harassment stopped. That's a big problem. So I took that week. 70% of the reports were for things that were really bad that shouldn't have been deleted, but they were getting deleted. And then the problem is when they go away, all these other brokers don't know that there's a problem with that carrier. And then they start using the carrier, and then bam, there's more freight guard reports. So one of the major changes is to how we handle updating and deleting reports. And we can talk about it later if you want. But basically, when a new freight guard report is submitted, the broker will have the ability to update or delete the report within the first 72 hours. They have full control over the report in the first 72 hours, beginning when the report is submitted. Before it's released. And even when it is released, if the carrier responds to the report or we choose to release the report because it's so severe, the broker can still get in during the first 72 hours. They can add or remove items. They can change their comments, and they can even delete the report. And during the first 72 hours, when a report's deleted, it's gone. I mean, it's completely deleted. No breadcrumbs, no footprints, no history, nothing. It's gone. Oh, but then after 72 hours, that's a different game. They will not be able to edit or update the original report once it's 72 hours old or more.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Rapido. Rapido connects logistics and supply chain organizations in North America with the best nearshore talent, scale efficiently, operate on par with US-based teams, and deliver superior customer service. Learn more about the Rapido solution and begin building your team away from home at gorapido.com.
They can delete the report if it's older than 72 hours. But for reports that are older than 72 hours that get deleted, they're not going away. They'll just be reclassified in our database as deleted. They'll still be visible to all of our customers. They'll still be listed. All the reportable items will still be seen. Everyone will know what they were reported for with the deleted reports, except we did a couple things to stop the harassment. We're actually, for when a report is older than 72 hours is deleted, we conceal the identity of the broker. Okay, all their contact information is blurred, it's encrypted. We also blur and encrypt the comments in the report, and we also blur and encrypt the response from the carrier if the carrier responded. So all that on screen is blurred. Nobody can view the source code. You won't be able to identify the broker. If you try to copy the blurred text, the blurred content, and paste it, it won't paste as clear text. So we're protecting the identity of the broker that originally submitted and deleted the report. They delete a report older than 72 hours. We're going to indicate the report was deleted. Customers will be able to see the date and time it was submitted. They'll be able to see the date and time it was deleted. But then they're also going to know the reason why the report's deleted, because we introduced 6 new items. At any time when a broker deletes a freight guard report, they're going to have to select one of the 6 items as the reason for deleting the report. So for reports deleted after 72 hours, customers will be able to see the reason that, as indicated by the broker, as to why they deleted the report. And sometimes knowing the reason why a report was deleted could be just as important as why the report was submitted in the first place.
Yeah.
And we also introduced 24 new reportable items, 24 more items for reporting carriers. And this is based on all the problems that we see carriers cause brokers every single day.
Darren, I'm curious because you mentioned about the scammer network that are like harassing these brokers. You mentioned Carrier Network. Like, do you know like where they're operating from exactly? And also just curious, like, so these are just like networks of, I guess, fraudsters, scammers, just to kind of like, for example, if you're a dough broker or if you're like scamming people and you get freight guarded, your MC gets freight guarded, they're just going to unleash like hell on your phone system and like your emails, basically.
They unleash a fury of hell to harass the broker. This one broker I told you about one day,
Yeah.
It was so bad for that broker. All their phone lines and emails were totally saturated. That small broker couldn't even conduct business that day. It couldn't move any freight for its customers that day. Effectively, the scammers disrupted the brokers so bad they couldn't even do business.
Like, I mean, how do we stop that? Like, how does that get like eliminated? Because that's something new. And these scammers are creative. They keep coming up with new tactics, you know, and like
it's extreme. And I've spent a lot of time thinking long and hard about how to deal with all these issues on sort of a global basis, especially the harassment.
Yeah.
I have a few more ideas, possibly, like if a broker's under attack mode and there's a heavy attack going on against the broker. I've got a few ideas that I'm still trying to iron out, but I have to make sure they're legal. Okay. Like, one of my instant thoughts was, wow, I wonder how interesting it would be to launch a counterattack against the carrier if the broker could do that, but that's not exactly. But
the best defense is offense kind of tactic.
Huh?
The best defense is offense.
Yeah. So, all right. So the changes in freight guard reports, as of today, October 15th, 2024, we still have not officially announced these changes and enhancements to our customers. Why? It's all part of the plan. So about 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, I kind of dripped some content out publicly on our site. You just go to our site, not log in, and there's information about page about freight guard reports. So what did I do? I started putting out new content. I sort of announced the changes and kind of laid out what's happening. And I did it on purpose, and I did it in a very controlled way. And I knew what the big picture was going to be and all of the changes that were going to be introduced. But I started out on a Sunday evening and just dripped out some content. And I did it on purpose because I wanted to see, is anybody even going to notice this? And how are they going to react? And who's going to notice it? And how are they going to react? And it was fascinating. And it so far exceeded my expectations. And I'm usually pretty good at gauging stuff. Oh my God. People noticed it right away, fast. And literally within hours, there was stuff up on social media everywhere about it. And it wasn't so much the brokers reacting to it, because all the market research I did, and I've got a group of about 10 customers of different brokers of different sizes that I will call, who we're extremely friendly with, and I'll usually use them as a litmus test, right? Here's what we're doing. Here's what it is. What do you think about it? What do you have to say? And then we refine things. So I knew I was going to have a very long list of new items to report carriers. When I first dripped it out there, the content was only partial. And over the course of the next week, I really kind of waited until the following weekend to start adding even more, because I wanted to see how people would react to certain things immediately, and then how they would then continue to react when we started adding more. Oh my God, man. The response from the trucking side of things, these people just lost their minds. And one of my goals, and this goes back to the harassment of brokers, is these, I don't even know what you want to call them. I call them scammers. I call them companies, nothing designed but just to harass brokers. These carrier reputation management companies. And there's a bunch of them, and we've tracked them over the, the last year. And one of them's out of Chicago. And they advertise they can get freight guard reports deleted, usually for about $2,500 or more per freight guard report. And a lot of them, they're backed by attorneys, and the attorneys start harassing and threatening these brokers, including legal threats and lawsuits. Most of the lawsuits I've seen, probably 95% of them, filed on behalf of carriers against brokers over freight guard reports, like 95% of them are totally frivolous. Because the irony is, these brokers, they take these freight guard reports seriously, and so do we. These brokers have documented proof. I mean, they caught the carrier doing exactly what the carrier did, and for the most part, they reported it accurately, truthfully, factually, and they got the documented proof to back it up. Well, if you submit a report, I mean, we still have constitutional rights, okay, and freedom of speech. And, people submit reviews all the time, whether it's Google or Yelp or whatever, and that's fine, okay? But boy, if it's true and you have the documented proof to back it up, they got nothing to worry about. But we know how powerful these reports are. I mean, sometimes even one freight guard report can be enough to put a carrier out of business. And what I've learned over the last 2 weeks, we've been watching all the reactions of people, and what people have been posting online, and what some of these attorneys have been posting online. And it's what the attorneys are posting is very off base and very misleading, and we believe they're totally wrong in their assessments, but that's okay. I mean, we're backed by some of the best legal counsel in the industry. I mean, I've got powerhouse nationwide law firm behind us. And last year alone, I spent, I think, over $220,000 in legal fees, not to protect us, but to protect brokers in the logistics industry with freight guard reports. And I did it at my expense. I didn't pass it on to the expense on to customers. I mean, we literally have attorneys watching, monitoring lawsuits that get filed nationwide against brokers about freight guard reports. And they're just trying to find a crack in the armor when it comes to freight guard reports, okay? And we do everything to protect and shield our customers for freedom of speech. And we're protected by federal law, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I mean, we're immune from prosecution, but that doesn't stop some small carrier who doesn't know better from walking into their local courthouse in Chicago and trying to file a lawsuit against us. And that happens, and we have to deal with it, and we do. And we have a very refined way of dealing with it that's extremely strategic. And never, ever once has anyone been successful at suing Carrier411 over a freight guard report. We're immune from prosecution. And if a carrier is foolish enough to have their attorney try to file a lawsuit against us, then they're dealing with an attorney that's incompetent and doesn't understand federal law, because they should know we're protected and immune. One time there was a case, I think it was earlier this year in Los Angeles, were some double brokering Armenian trucking company that got nailed and caught dead to rights, hired their Armenian attorney to try and come after us. And they sued us in Southern California. And they tried to allege that we did not have Section 230 protection. And they realized they were wrong. And we dealt with them and we took them down. And any carrier, any attorney that ever tries to file a lawsuit against Carrier411 is making a big mistake, because not only will we be successful, and we have been, the carrier and the attorney, we go after sanctions. So not only is the carrier responsible if they don't dismiss it, but so is the attorney. And the problem is the carriers will only tell one side of the story to the attorney. They don't tell them the whole story, and they don't usually tell them the truth.
Yeah.
But once the attorney finds out the truth, it's a different game.
Fascinating. Such a great conversation, Darren. I'm also curious to switch it up a little bit here. If you could tell me about your marketing strategy, because you've told me this before, that you haven't spent a single dime on marketing in 15 years. You don't attend any conferences, any trade show events, which is kind of like, honestly, like mind-boggling in a bit because so many companies spend so much money on conferences, marketing, trade shows, etc., where your approach is completely different. Can you talk to us a little bit about your marketing strategy and why you stopped attending conferences and stopped spending money on marketing 15 years ago?
Yeah, sure. We like the associations. We used to belong to several different associations, including TIA and Knit League and the International Factoring Association and others, because we like to support the industry. But yeah, about 15 years ago, it was probably early 2010, we stopped all marketing. We stopped all advertising. We stopped going to trade shows, and we have zero salespeople. Part of it was because of the way we set up how we do what we do from day one, going back 20 years ago. And I knew what I wanted to do. I used to work for a big Fortune 500 company, and I used to work in Silicon Valley. And so I thought, the ultimate thing would be to have a very grassroots type approach, where if you provide a great service for a great price and people are happy about it and they use it and they love using it and they use it every day, all day, and it helps their business. Well, you know what they do, Paul? They tell other people. And then I knew early on that, especially when it was no surprise that I turned to the mega brokers first when I launched originally in beta, because all the people who worked there, I mean, this, how long is somebody going to stay working at, TQL? They come and go.
Probably, yeah, very quickly.
So when they start using a platform and people know to learn and they get used to it and they trust it, it becomes part of what they do every day. Well, if you're working at a broker and you leave and you go to work at another brokerage and you love Carrier411 and you feel like you can't do your job without it, well, if they go to another broker and that broker doesn't have an account with us, what do you think is going to happen?
Don't tell them about it.
No, trial. And then, also there's people who will ultimately go get their own broker authority, which is great. We love small brokers. I got a soft spot for, new brokers. Boom, they create an account. And everybody gets used to using Carrier411 and kind of depends on it and trusts it. And I've been really careful about trying to protect our brand and our reputation in the industry. Carriers may hate us. Brokers love us. Okay.
We've partnered with Ascend TMS, the world's most popular and top-rated transportation management system. You could use our referral code RA-FreightCaviar! To receive 3 months of Ascend TMS for free. You can click the link below to learn more.
So it's been very grassroots. It's been extremely organic. And, I got to tell you, these carriers, all this stuff that they post online and all their videos, it's everywhere, man. I mean, we've actually, I think at one point about 6 months ago on a Saturday, I was like, I'm going to see how many videos I can find about Carrier411 in different foreign languages. And I think I found videos in about 6 different foreign languages, most of them talking about us and freight guard reports.
Yeah.
But all the stuff that's published online, man, that's like free marketing for us. Brokers go Googling us, looking up, whatever. They come across all this stuff everywhere, and they realize it's all these carriers about brokers not using them because of Carrier411. I mean, man, what better marketing and advertising and testimony could you give a broker? Boom. So we're really particular about who we allow to have an account. And if you think about how brokers screen carriers, take that times 10. And that's what we do. We're so particular about who we allow to have an account. Accounts and access are allowed at our discretion, period. Just because somebody wants an account with us does not mean they're going to get an account with us unless we feel comfortable with them. And we usually, when we talk to customers, people who create trials, we'll spend at least 45 minutes to an hour on the phone with them, asking all sorts of questions. I mean, sometimes we ask, especially if I happen to call them, we'll ask more questions than the CIA. And the irony is, we usually know the answers to the questions before we ask them. And we're just giving the person the opportunity to tell us the truth. But another way to look at it is we're giving them the opportunity to misrepresent something or hide something or lie to us. Because if they lie to us, they're done. Done. We'll blacklist them. They'll never be able to have an account with us. And over the course of the last year, I mean, we grow every single day, every single week, every single month, nonstop, and it's been that way for the last 20 years. We don't do any marketing. And we can't even keep up with the people who create trial accounts with us. But I will tell you this, because I was very curious, over the course of this year in 2024, especially as the scammers and the fraud schemes have gotten worse, there's bad brokers, okay? And probably 40% of the trial accounts, and maybe even close to 50% of the trial accounts that get created by brokers, we will not let them have access to our platform. We'll just tell them, no, I'm sorry, we don't feel comfortable letting you have an account. Oh, and they lose their minds. Why? They ask. We won't tell them why. Because if we don't feel comfortable letting them have an account, it's for really good reasons. They're up to some kind of funny business, and we've connected the dots. And we will not explain why we won't let them have an account. We'll just say, I'm sorry, we don't feel comfortable letting you have an account. And that's it, because we don't want to educate them. Because if you educate them, this is what they try to cover up and hide, so they can kind of fly under the radar, right? So we don't.
So I have a question for you, Darren, that you might not actually want to answer because of those reasons.
I will answer any question you ask me about anything, and it will be the truth.
I know that companies that like outsource to Colombia, they use nearshore providers, that you don't allow those brokerages to have accounts. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
And,
So I heard that. So if you could clarify that a little bit. Like,
hey, is your internet still good? Because you look like you froze up on me. There you go.
yeah, my internet's good. I have the camera set up here. My video quality is good, and that's the recording that we're gonna have. So
Okay.
I could, if you want, I could hop out of this and we could create a new recording. But it looks all good here.
We're good. We're good. So let's talk about the I don't care if you call it nearshore, offshore, third party staffing,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. You know what it is. We know what it is, and the industry knows what it is. Specifically about Colombia, the Philippines, and Mexico. Okay. So one of the things we did about 5 years ago is we started to drop and block all inbound internet traffic that comes to us from outside the US, Canada, and Mexico. So if you're somewhere in Eastern Europe and you try to get through to our site, you will never be able to get through to our site. We allow, and we're really good. I mean, I've got so many layers and layers and layers of security at different levels and different points on a global basis. We're really good at analyzing and deconstructing traffic in real time. Okay. And so we allow traffic from the US and Canada. We allow challenged traffic from Mexico. But if you're coming at us from outside US, Canada, or Mexico, you ain't getting through. But they try, okay? And they'll try to use a VPN or proxy server or something data center related, like remote desktops and things like that.
Sure.
Well, so at the same time, I developed some technology, and we maintain our own proprietary data, and we're highly effective at identifying and preventing traffic coming into us using VPNs, proxies, and data centers, like 99% effectiveness.
Sure.
Now, companies, Colombia. So it's a violation of our terms of service, for one. If you think about it, the account is meant for our customer. And if they're allowing some other company to log into their account, they're violating our terms of service. And these third-party staffing agencies are exactly that. They're third-party companies. So we also have problems with some of the third-party staffing services because of some of the bad things that they've done. We have lots of brokers, usually the big brokers, that have used these third-party staffing services, especially in Colombia and the Philippines. Well, it's not that we don't let the brokers have an account, but we'll make it so that they can't let the people in Colombia log into their account. Okay. Now, others have tried, and some have circumvented it, especially if they're running a VPN on premise and we're unable to detect it. But yeah, we just don't allow it for a long list of reasons that I'm not going to get into.
Got it. Okay.
We also don't allow a lot of other types of companies like attorneys, law firms, carriers, dispatch services, and others. Yeah. There's certain companies we will not allow to have accounts with us at our discretion. It's for good reason. Now, I don't know if that answers your question.
If it does.
Let me know.
I mean, overall, it does. Like, no, like it makes sense since it's a third-party staffing company. What if it's like the brokerage opened up their own office overseas? Like, just to give you some context, I was based in Ukraine working for Everest Transportation Systems from 2017 to 2020, and yeah, so we were just before the VPN situation happened, and like I guess not the VPN situation, the foreign IP address blocking occurred. So we were using Carrier411 back in Ukraine. And then I think it was like right around the time I left that stopped. And I started hearing, Carrier411 doesn't work any longer in the offices. So like for those kind of situations, does that change at all or no? Like if, let's say you actually had like your own office out there.
So, I don't lie about anything. I'm going to answer your question. We have customers that have operations outside the United States, predominantly in Eastern Europe, and you know all the long list of companies.
Yeah.
So one of the things we have a term here, we call it trust relationships. So from the very beginning, we start to establish that relationship with the customer. And like I told you before, the worst thing anybody could ever do is lie to us or even try to lie to us because of the things that we know, that we see, that we log and keep forever, that they don't see and they don't know we know. The best way to answer that question is it's on a one-off basis.
Okay.
And it depends on our relationship with the customer,
Sure.
how long they've been a customer, what our experience has been like with them, if they've been good, if they've had any problems. And I'll tell you, we even watch what we call related companies. Okay, so if a broker has some related companies, maybe they're also asset-based, maybe they have other brokerages. Well, we're watching all that stuff too as a part of the big picture about our customer. And you know, it's interesting. I mean, I think you'd agree, man. I mean, the world has changed. This is like the new world order now over the last couple of years. It ain't getting better. And it's never going to go back to the way it used to be. Okay. So we look at those relationships and the people we're all about processes, policies, processes, procedures. So a customer, we may reach out to us and say, okay, well, we have some people in the Ukraine. And depending on who they are and how long they've been with us and what we know about them and that trust factor, okay? The people in my office may just tell them hard no. No, we're not going to even consider it. But for certain customers, if we're kind of cool with them and we know they're legit and they're not up to any business, it's not like they got people in, as long as they don't have people in Armenia stealing freight or people in Ukraine trying to double, triple broker loads. Okay.
Yeah.
We dig deep. We have if it's even something people in my office are willing to consider, we have an email it's sort of a template. It's 20 questions, literally 20 questions. And we'll send that email to the broker and they have to answer in detail all 20 questions. And then people in my office review it. And if they're kind of okay with it, well, then it gets passed to me. And at the end of the day, as a matter of policy, I am the only one who can authorize and approve it. Okay. And I'll tell you this, there's about a 90% chance the answer is going to be no. Okay? But under some circumstances and conditions, depending how we feel about it and the relationship and the customer, well, then about 10% of the time, okay. And we have taken steps to allow it. We do not like it. But I'm understanding about it at the end of the day in some circumstances. But then you have to also understand, I got two words for you: America first. And I love our country. I'm Eastern European too. I may have told you before, my grandfather was from Russia, my grandmother's from the Ukraine. Yeah, I'm all about that. But man, our country has been destroyed. And it's taken away so many opportunities for people to work in the United States. I just think it's a shame. And I know why companies are outsourcing. It's because they can hire somebody and pay them $600 a week as opposed to what they'd have to pay, if they're outside the country, as opposed to what they're paid here. And the staffing services, especially the ones in Colombia, man, they should be ashamed of themselves. Because they may charge a broker like $600, $700 a week for that one person. But you know what that one person makes? Probably about $200 a week. So it's all a battle, man. And we're in the trenches, just like the brokers. And we're trying to protect our broker customers and their freight and protect the logistics industry. And it's a complex war. And I don't think the war is ever going to end. And you can fight battle after battle, and many of you might be successful, but I don't know how any people in the logistics industry are really going to win this war. But some of these changes that we were introducing to freight guard reports, I think are leading in that direction. Transparency, accountability of carriers. Brokers will now have, like I said, 24 new items for reporting carriers for a total of 34 different items for reporting carriers. And the reality is this. I mean, hey, look, man, you've been around for a long time. It's transportation. Inherently, it's flawed. Problems happen every day, and a lot of them are unavoidable. But a lot of the problems are avoidable. And I think if all these carriers, if they just really made a better effort to do what they're supposed to do, what they're hired to do, and they didn't do all these bad things that are avoidable, then there wouldn't be as many problems. And one of the interesting things that there's a reason I haven't announced all these freight guard report changes yet to our customers. We're still adding more. Like when we get off the phone today, I'm going to start adding more content because I haven't announced it, but this site that we have where, if a carrier gets reported, they can respond to the report. They're notified. They can respond. They got 72 hours. And we're actually finishing the development of a new site where these companies will go to respond, all brand new from ground up. And but one of the things we're doing differently is we're actually going to open up traffic to that site on a global basis.
Find shippers fast with shippercrm.com. Shipper CRM is a freight carrier product, and it is the first U.S. shipper database and freight CRM. Stop wasting time searching for shippers. Shipper CRM is the fastest way to find the shippers you should be working with. Supercharge your sales process with Shipper CRM. Learn more by going to shippercrm.com.
So earlier I explained we drop and block all traffic from outside the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So there's a reason why a lot of these freight guard reports go unresponded, because these people are in Eastern Europe or wherever.
Yeah.
And they can't even get through to our site to respond. New site, new technology, more enhanced. We're going to open up traffic on a global basis. So anyone, anywhere in the world that gets reported will be able to go respond. But there's going to be two new really cool things now. So obviously we know their IP address, but we know a lot more than just their IP address. We know where they hit our edge data center anywhere in the world, and we're highly effective at identifying, VPN, proxy, and data center traffic. So these people, while we're going to open it up to the world, if they try coming at us using a VPN proxy or data center, they're going to run headfirst into a brick wall that they won't be able to break through. And we're going to let them know, hey, we detected you're coming at us using a VPN proxy or data center, and that is not allowed. So go ahead and get off your VPN and come at us using your real ISP, wherever you are, okay? And when we detect that the real ISP, we know it, and there's a lot of information we know just based on their IP address. But it doesn't stop there, because now what we're going to do is introduce high accuracy geolocation to supplement the IP information. So when somebody goes in to respond to a freight guard report, the first thing they're going to be presented with is a request for high accuracy geolocation. And they have two choices. They can allow it or not allow it. If they allow it, we're going to put a pin in them wherever they are in the world, right down to the street address level, anywhere in the world. And I've tested it in 3 countries, and it works. My wife actually, a few months ago, went on a cruise out of Florida here with her friend, and I sent both of them the request while they were on the cruise ship, and it pinned them on the ship in the middle of the Atlantic. So brokers want to know that. They want to know where people really are. Okay, it's very important to them. People say, "Oh, you're profiling people." Yeah, we are profiling people because that's what brokers do. They profile people, and so do we, because it's what they have to try to do to protect their brokerage. So if a company that gets reported is faced with that request for high accuracy geolocation, we're going to let them say don't allow. They can deny the high accuracy geolocation request, but if they do, it becomes another data point about the freight guard report that the person denied the high accuracy geolocation request. But we're still already going to know a lot about them just based on their IP address alone. So brokers are very, very excited about that. And I'm thinking we're also going to introduce a new feature into Carrier411 on our new platform, new technology that will give brokers the ability to send these high accuracy geo requests to carriers, whether it's a somebody trying to book a load or even do a driver check call. So that's coming, but man, it's a lot of work. So when a couple weeks ago, on that Monday evening, when I told you I made it so people couldn't delete reports for the week, we learned something more. It was about how the mega brokers, and we have 97 of the top 100 brokers use us, and it would be 100 except we canceled and blacklisted 3 of them.
Who are they?
Who are they? I'm sure they wouldn't be happy if I said it, and I don't usually discuss information about customers, but probably our last big casualty was Schneider Logistics. But I won't go into why. But we canceled several of their accounts and blacklisted them, and we'll never let them have an account again. So more things coming, especially when it comes to freight guard reports.
Darren, you're very hands-on here, like in Carrier411. Carrier411 is very successful financially, customer-wise. Like, you don't have to be so hands-on, but you did mention like this is your baby and you love it. So I understand that passion behind it. But you're also the developer of it. Technically, if you don't have any salespeople, you're technically like the main salesperson in a way. Like, I'm kind of curious, like, can you tell us a little bit about the team at Carrier411? You did mention that you're going to be reducing it, though.
No, I'm not reducing the number of people who work here. What I'm trying to do is make their jobs a hell of a lot easier.
Okay.
So they can work smarter and more efficiently, and more things are even automated. And their interaction with customers and trial account people will even be more efficient. Okay. Because we're going to take, right now from day one, man, 20 years, we've always offered 30-day free trial. Usually what happens is if we're cool with letting someone have access to our platform and we enable trial access, that person already knows right away they want to keep it. They want to keep the service. So a lot of times what we do is say, okay, we'll do something nice for you. I know statistically there's about a 95% probability that if we're willing to let someone have a trial account, we know they want to keep it from the get-go. And if we're cool with them, we'll say, I'll tell you what, we'll do something nice for you. Because there are certain things you cannot do with a trial that you could if your account were active. Now, this is up to you. okay? Because we're not selling people. If you want, we'll be happy to activate your account because we're cool with you, but we're going to honor the free 30 days anyway. That's a good thing. So they love that. I mean, it's goodwill. It's a great way to get off on the right foot and establish a relationship with somebody. And, you know, people in my office, they tell people, we're not like anybody else you're used to dealing with. We are not like DAT. We are not like Truck Stop. And it's gotten to the point, Paul, where literally someone, if we let somebody have an account, we literally say, welcome to the club. Because it's very much like, almost like the private club. We're so, restrictive about who we allow to have an account. Because we only want the good brokers having accounts. We keep the bad people away to protect the logistics industry.
Darren,
I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it does. It does. And like this has been a great interview, and I honestly think a lot of people are going to tune into this. Do you have any topics you'd like to discuss still before we sign off? I mean, there's so much information here, so much good stuff, and I know like a lot of people are going to find value in it. But yeah,
I'm very involved with everything. But a lot of what I do personally is behind the scenes. Now, I have a staff in my office, and then I've got a couple people on the back end who work very closely with me. And, you know, I always say, take care of the people who take care of you. My employees are so loyal and dedicated and good. And then the two people who work very closely with me behind the scenes, while I still do all the development, they really help me take care of all the infrastructure, the technology, the security. And one of them will even, I mean, he's smarter than me. And this guy's brilliant. He'll even help me from time to time if I am doing some development work and I'm stuck. You know, this guy has like saved my ass on a few things. He's just brilliant. But yeah, I do all the development work and come up with the ideas for who we are and what we're doing and what we're coming up with. And we always ask customers for input and suggestions. Sometimes we get suggestions, but it's not easy to get suggestions. I don't have an agenda other than to help protect our broker customers in the logistics industry. So there's really nothing I want to talk about. Generally, and I think you might recognize this, I'm very secretive. Okay, that's kind of my MO. I'm like a mystery wrapped in an enigma. But when I do emerge, I talk to someone who I like and trust, ask me anything, and I'll tell you the truth. But I don't broadcast who we are and what we're doing. And boy, do I protect my employees. So, like, for example, I own an office building. It's about 10 minutes away from our published office address where there are no people. And we get crazy carriers showing up at our published office address every week looking for us. We get death threats. My employees have been stalked at home, harassed on their personal cell phones. What we go through is crazy. I mean, I've had to get local authorities, out-of-state authorities, and the FBI involved in a lot of things.
Wow.
Because of the death threats that we get. Me, I'm not worried about it. I'll invite someone to come and meet with me. They can just schedule an appointment. I'll be happy to meet with them. Other than that, it's about you. And, you know, maybe whatever you want the logistics industry to understand, and ask away. But
I went through all the questions.
We are, and we're hardcore. Yeah. We are hardcore.
And I think this interview actually like brings a lot of, I mean, not closure, that's not the right word, but like just allows people in the industry to kind of get a better insight into you and the company, because it is very secretive, because you keep it behind closed doors. And I appreciate your openness and like just transparency on this interview. because I truly appreciate that. I know like our audience will appreciate that as well.
Good.
And overall, it was great. I mean, it was great to talk to you, Darren, about all these topics. I have no questions left right now, but I guarantee you, I'm gonna want to do another one of these in the near future.
And that's cool. I mean, so I knew who you were. And I knew what you were doing. I actually respected you guys for what you're doing. And as you know, we have some mutual friends in common, and one of them in particular. And he told me all about you. And he said, Paul, man, he's solid. He's a good guy. And that's why we're talking today. And you can reach out to me anytime. You know how to do that.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to talk to you more.
My number's okayed in your phone. It's
I have very intense call screening. If people try to get through to me, they're usually very unsuccessful unless I allow them. But yeah, man, I mean, it's up to you. You ever want to talk again or anything? Give me a shout. Be happy to.
Definitely.
So I don't know. Hey, again, I think you made it clear. You and I didn't talk about any of this stuff. I had
all these questions. Yeah. This was completely like right off the cuff. Like there was no we had a call a couple weeks ago where we were discussing some of like the Carrier411 postings I had made.
Because we're very protective about the information, especially freight guard reports. And if we catch people reposting content and screenshots from our site, that's a big problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You and I talked about that. You didn't know, but we're good. We're good.
Yeah. Now we're good. And now we just had a great interview. Darren, once again, thank you for coming on. We'll get a lot of feedback from this. And I guess that's about it. That's a wrap for today's episode.
Thanks, Paul, man. Great talking with you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Freight Caviar podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more Freight Caviar content, go to freightcaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.